the Indic traditions, that means Hinduism, Buddhism, Jainism, and Sikhism, all subscribe to the idea of reincarnation. The Buddhists call it rebirth, but basically the same idea. So we say that depending on how far you progress spiritually, you continue your journey with rebirth. So there is no eternal heaven or hell in any of the Indic traditions. But this is between lives. You might kind of create a heaven or hell of your own and live in it yourself as a metaphysical entity. Let me just lighten up a little bit. There are three views here regarding life after death. One says there are only two lives, this one and the next everlasting one. So if you've been a goody-goody, you go to heaven and have barbecue with God. Or if you've been a baddie-baddie, then you are the barbecue. That's the second opinion, the humanist opinion. We say, so the atheistic opinion, we say this is the best life you have, make the most of it, every moment is golden. So it in a way kind of focuses them and makes this life very valuable. But then you see if they ring the emergency number, there's no answer. So this is like the kind of issue, what happens when you are struggling with death. Then there's the Indic tradition. I'll just show the strength and the weakness. The strength is it gives you kind of measured reward for measured risk you take in this life. So there's no infinite reward or infinite damnation depending on what good or bad you've done. So it's a fairer system. It doesn't offer an infinitely skewed risk-reward ratio, which is very dangerous. But there's a drawback. You say, what's the drawback? Sounds like a nice, fair idea. Must take the mickey out of my own religion too. The drawback is this, because it gives you so many opportunities to make spiritual progress, who cares for spiritual progress? It can happen later on. For the time being, Bollywood is good enough. This is the problem.
So, first of all, I don't know if you know, but in Judaism there are 613 commandments, which seems like quite a lot. And these things would be going into very much detail about certain concepts like keeping the Sabbath or keeping kosher. And that's specific for Jews to keep these 613 commandments. And the idea is that if you try and you persist and you continually grow in your spirituality, then you will go to heaven. With regards to other religions, there's actually an idea of 7 Noahide laws, and these laws are things like creating for yourself a justice system, court system, having peace with other people, and believing in monotheism in your own way. And actually, if someone who isn't Jewish believes in or conducts himself in a way according to these 7 laws, then he automatically will go to heaven. So, I don't know if that answers your question.
Thanks for the question. In Islam, I mean, there's a spectrum of views. There is obviously the basic belief in the hereafter, but the nature of that, and if I can add to what has been said, that the hereafter can also be a projection of your actions. And it's not just about, yes, it is about spiritual growth, but it's not just a place you go or a place where you're rewarded, but it's how your soul, for example, the idea that there is no God but Allah. Now, if there is only God going to exist, it's about the proximity of your soul in relation to the divine. So it's not that there's a heaven and hell, it's about your nearness or how far you are. And if, for example, in this life there's been a lot of corruption in your soul, you are basically creating that kind of anger, that kind of tension for yourself, where the soul doesn't have a body anymore. It has a celestial body, and that's going to be close to God. Now, if there's only God and you like to eat a lot, or you have a very high level of sexual appetite, for example, you can't do that anymore. So therefore, the soul feels angry. The soul feels, away from all of that. So that's it. I just want to add a different concept of the hereafter. In terms of religions and all that, there's always been the idea that if you have this idea of journeying towards the divine, if you are having good akhlaq, as we say, or good deeds, you will be justly rewarded. And there's no such thing that only one religion goes. It's always about your deeds. That's very important in Islam.
Again, there's probably a spectrum of views across Christianity. And there certainly are some Christians who believe in a heaven and a hell, and heaven is overseen by God and Jesus, and hell is overseen by the devil. I like very much what my neighbour here has said about the journey. as a Methodist minister, I said that the founder of Methodism is John Wesley. And he has a concept called Christian perfection. And the idea is that throughout your life, you strive for Christian perfection. You're not striving to get into heaven, you're striving to be the best possible person you can be. And because we're humans, most people fail. But what John Wesley suggests is that you pick yourself up and start again and try again to attain Christian perfection. Trying to read what else I've written down here. I think also that some Christians would say you'll go to hell if you do not believe that Jesus Christ is your Lord and Saviour. If you cannot say you've been saved, then you're condemned to whatever hell is. And for some Christians, God is a God of judgment. For me, God is a God of forgiveness and mercy, and I think if there is a heaven, then there's room for everybody. If I could remember the joke, I'd tell it, but there's a joke that sort of goes like, you arrive at the gates of heaven and there's a group for the Methodists, a group for the Baptists, a group for the Catholics. They're all in separate rooms because they don't know about each other. But no, is it a God of wrath and judgment, or is God a God of forgiveness and mercy? And I think, as I say, if there is a heaven, which is often in Christian terms, a picture of a beautiful lake is often drawn and lots of light, then there's room for everybody.